Call the meeting to order. Winslow Town Council, Monday, April 8th, 2024.
We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I start, if I could just remind everybody to keep the talking in the audience to a minimum, and if you could put your phones on silent, that would be wonderful. Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Roll call. Mike Joseph.
Here.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Fran Hudson.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Here.
Adam Lint.
Here.
And Lee Trahan is absent this evening, and Jeff West.
Here.
Is there any conflicts of interest this evening? None? Approval of minutes from the previous meeting, which is March 11th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, discussion. Roll call.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Fran Hudson.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Adam Lint.
Yes.
He is absent. Jeff West.
Yes.
And Mike Joseph.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 with one absent. Under communications, we have a presentation.
Adam Corey, can you step up here, please?
I've been getting harassed for this one for a long time.
I don't know why. A life was probably saved because of your actions.
I ain't no hero.
Well, so this is to recognize Adam for an event that happened back on March 12th. The certificate of recognition is presented to Adam Corey for his heroism on March 12th, 2024. Adam responded to a structure fire on Hollowell Street. In addition to calling the fire into dispatch, he risked his own safety to rescue the homeowner. The town of Winslow thanks him for his outstanding service. Adam, thank you. I just want to add one thing to that. You don't know where our public servants are. You know, I mean, a situation like this, Adam works for the Public Works Department. He happened to be in location, so he was able to respond. And this gentleman actually lived because of his response. So I think a lot of people are indebted to him. So thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Under boards, committees, and appointments, we do have one. Wyatt Quirian is currently on the Zoning Board of Appeals, and his term has come and expired. He would like to stay on that board and be reappointed. That's what I'm looking for.
Second.
Any discussion?
Fran Hudson.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Adam Lint.
Yes.
Lee Trey. Jeff West.
Yes.
Mike Joseph.
Yes.
And Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Motion passes 6 with 1 absent. And now we're on to presentations. A presentation from KV Cap regarding the old junior high building. David Pelton is here.
This is the best place to stand.
You're doing perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Good
Mr.
evening.
Belt, one thing.
Yep.
We do have a 10-minute time limit, just on presentations.
Good, because I have a lot of knowledge rattling around in my head. You know, I could go on for a while. So, good evening. My name is Dave Pelton. I'm the Director of Real Estate Development with KV Cap. My job is basically to find interesting projects where affordable housing can be built. And KV Cap's been doing it in all around Kennebec and Somerset counties. And I think tonight we are mostly revisiting an idea and starting this conversation maybe with a little bit of freshness and some fresh ideas coming in from the town and maybe a few fresh ideas from our side as well. We looked at this building. At the picture that you see up on the screen is just from Google Maps of the building we're talking about, and the section. I'll try and point a little bit, but the white section, and there's a dark section. So I'll refer to the light colored section as the oldest part of the building, and the darker roof section, it was built in right around 1970. So it is a historic building. I know 1970 doesn't sound historic to a lot of people, but it actually, anything that's over 50 years old can qualify as a historic building, which means from a funding point of view, if you're looking at doing anything with this building, housing is one option, but if you're looking at doing anything with this building, you can access some historic tax credit funding for the whole building, not just the oldest part, because even the addition from 1970 is over 50 years old. So, so that's an interesting thing to keep in mind. No matter what the town decides to do with this property, there is a little bit of extra funding available through historic tax credits. There are specific historic tax credits that are earmarked for housing, affordable housing projects. KV Cap just converted the old women's prison up in Skowhegan into 40 units of workforce housing, and that was partly funded. About $2.5 million of that came from historic tax credits. So there are some challenges with this property in terms of, it wasn't really originally designed to be housing, in that it's surrounded by, parking lots and ball fields. So then the building itself, looking at the oldest part of the building with the white roof, that white square in the middle is the auditorium. And then the classrooms are kind of all around it. And this is not an uncommon design from the earlier part of the 1900s, 20th century. So it is a little bit complicated to work with a building that has a giant auditorium and gymnasium right in the middle. And if you're going to use historic tax credit funding to renovate something like that, you have to keep it. You can't just, say, well, we're going to slice up this auditorium into like 4 apartments or something. You have to keep it as an auditorium. So that said, we did come up with a plan. This was just before COVID, and we were sharing some ideas and looking through some ideas. We did get an architect involved. We did put some funding, some resources into coming up with a plan back then. And the next slide, the next picture will show a little bit about what the architect came up with. And the idea was the dark sections incorporate all of the 1970s edition and part of the original building from 40 years earlier. And the orange sections are sort of the question mark. The one in the middle is the auditorium, or this says the gym. But if you've been in that building, you know that the gym is sort of below grade, mostly below grade, and then the auditorium's on top of it. And then there's a section over to the left that still has some classrooms in it. And that's kind of as far as we got last time. We didn't really dive into much deeper than that, because it just seemed like for the town just wasn't quite ready to jump in at that point. So I think opening up this conversation again now, almost 4 years later, 3.5 years later, is probably a good time for a couple of reasons. One of them is, if you listen to what comes out of Augusta, there's a lot of money right now, and this is from the federal government too. A lot of money is being put into affordable housing. So to fund a project, this is a good time to put in an application. Basically, there are other towns all over the state putting in applications to access some of that money, and it would be great if Winslow got their share. I can tell you, the project, for example, in Skowhegan was about a $14 million project. We're looking at one over in Waterville that would be about the same, about a $14 million project. A lot of the money goes to the greater Portland area. KV Caps is trying to pull some of it up to this part of the state, and not just have it all go along the coast and down to southern Maine. So I think there are good things about having this conversation now, and probably for the next 2 years, or 3 years, I think this funding will be available. The question that has always been a little bit of a sticking point is what to do with those orange areas. And I think the question really goes back to the town. If the town has, there were a couple of ideas. One idea was some of it could be used for, the rec department. At one point said they needed more space. Maybe some parts of the town offices that were overflowing their current offices, some of that could be turned into office space. If you go back to the other picture, I don't know if we can, Ella, if we can flip back to the other picture. And how am I doing on time? I'm not at 10 minutes yet, am I?
You got 3 minutes left.
Okay, no problem. So you can see there's actually a parking lot if you're looking at this to the left of the white roof, there's a little parking area that could be separated out. So if that side of the building wanted to be used for something else, something that the town wanted to use it for other than housing, it would be pretty easy to just sort of earmark those parking spots over there. And if not, I mean, we essentially laid it out with the architect as if the town did want to use part of the building. We could go back and find a use for all of the building except the auditorium and the gym are still a little awkward. That essentially would just become there's lots of opportunities, lots of potential things there. One of the things that I think is important to mention that is if we did housing on the back portion and on part of the oldest part of the building, if that were turned into housing, the funding that we would secure would include certain upgrades to the entire property. For example, a sprinkler system would go into the entire building. It wouldn't stop at the auditorium. It would go to the entire building. Electrical upgrades, lighting upgrades, things like that would go into the entire building. So I think that's important to note that it sort of could create a more move-in ready space if the town did want to use some of that. So before my 10 minutes is up, I'll just mention some of the other problems that were brought up, or concerns that were brought up, were obviously the ball fields, and especially the football field. So I was just over there before this meeting, walking around again, and that baseball field that shows up in the picture that's not the varsity field. I think it's used by the school systems, and it might probably be used by little league groups, but that's not the varsity field. There are other ball fields in other parts of the campus that are used for the games, for the school inter-school games. That said, I think that football field, I know there's concern about parking, so we would have to work that out. And there's some ideas, like maybe part of the baseball field you see, maybe part of the outfield could be parking during the football games or something, since it's not an active, varsity field. So anyway, just, I guess that's enough for now to start the conversation. But I think the bottom line is, KV Cap would definitely still be interested in this, and we think that there's money being put into other parts of the state and other towns. Why not try to get some coming into Winslow? We have an interest because we're local, and we like to try and do things right in our own backyard if we can. And it's really kind of, I think, up to the town. If this feels like a good use for that property, then we'd be happy to call the architect back in at our expense. We wouldn't be asking the town to pay for that. At this, we would bring the architect back in and sort of revisit the idea.
Your 10 minutes is up. Good job.
There you go. Perfect.
If I could
Thanks.
ask, open it up for questions.
Yep.
Jeff?
Yep.
Through the chair. Through the chair, could you go, Ella, could you bring up the picture with the orange on it, back on it, please?
Not that one, the other one.
Yeah, the other one.
I had a 50% chance. of
That's right.
If I might be, I believe that even though we're talking about the thing, this right here was a elevator that, at your cost, you would put in. Is that correct?
Right, so there's only one elevator in the building right now. We would add a second elevator.
I think the elevator is over here,
Yeah.
but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
But I know it's near there, so you would do that. You're talking about putting the whole building back up to ADA standards?
Yeah, so, taking on the investment from the state and from, say, the historic tax credit funding, they have, they would require us to be, 2024, 2025 ADA standards. The fire marshal would want everything to be sprinkled to the, and the building accessible from a fire safety point of view to the modern, current standards, all of that. Electrical standards, plumbing standards, all the standards. And a much more energy efficient building. We would actually add a lot of insulation and make it a more energy efficient building.
And through the chair, we're talking about the gym obviously is below grade, which has, I don't know if you've ever played on the thing. It's pretty slippery during certain times. It's just the moisture just coming right up through the ground there. I know that we had talked about some type of solution for that after your portion of the project, that it would be the auditorium, the gym, the classrooms would be usable, or would be usable they would include those upgrades. Is that correct or not, Dave?
Yeah, so the auditorium, it would be, at least partially renovated, certainly up to code. The stage would be usable for, I don't know, gym, dance recitals or whatever goes on small stages like that. But it could also just be a general recreation space. And then the gym downstairs, it does flood. There are some things that would, bring in the civil engineers and start figuring that one out. It would be the next step.
How about asbestos? I know there's asbestos through that. You would mitigate
Yeah.
all the asbestos in the entire facility?
Yeah, that would be another requirement of the funding. And we've had to do that before. We tore down in Heartland, we tore down an old school that had asbestos tiles and stuff like that. We had to pay extra to get it all, properly remediated.
I mean, through the chair, I know that we had not negotiated at the time. I was on that committee, and, we obviously had done some work, but I don't think we had finalized, sort of like a maintenance agreement, because we would be sharing electricity, we would be sharing heat, we'd be sharing structures. We had talked about some type of, you would maintain the entire building, the town would use that portion and rent or pay some type of maintenance fee for the fuel, and I don't remember really. If you could maybe refresh my memory, or I don't believe we ever went into that type of.
Yeah, we didn't really go down that deep into it. I guess there's two, so the space would have to be maintained one way or another. Either it would be rented out and maintained through those rental fees, or just the same way that the apartments are being rented out and then that space is maintained through the rental fees. Or if it was rented, if that space was rented, say, for $1 a year to the town, then the town would do their own maintenance, or something like that. There could be some arrangement like that. There's probably multiple ways of piecing it together, but we never really went down that road.
And through the chair, one last question maybe. Through the chair, I know I don't want to put anybody on the spot here, but Amanda, I'm going to put you on the spot, I guess. So I don't know. I know you were pretty heavily involved in the committee and everything like that. I'm not asking you for a yes or no, but what your thoughts were at the time. I know we've talked about it, and I don't wanna put you on the spot, but if you have anything to say about this, cause it would be a facility that would be, for the most part, under your control.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've not made it a secret, rec needs more space, and it would be great to have places we could permanently set up things like summer fun camp, and gym space is a huge issue. We just don't have enough space. But I mean, I think there's some legitimate issues as well, like the parking. Parking in the outfield probably wouldn't be a great option. But I think, there's some logistical things there, but obviously if the space was available, I would make good use of it.
And I'm not advocating one way or the other here. It's just, we got a new council. It's been a while. We're now looking at the demolition of the building and the costs related to that, which we have not gotten yet, but it was my thought that Dave would come in and then we would have a discussion among the council to say, is there any interest in not renegotiating, but opening up this and looking at some facts and figures and going down a few of the rabbit holes to see if this is a viable option for the town of Winslow?
Through the chair, I have a question, if you would. I'm just curious, I know they've already visited all this, but if this were to be a go from start to get it even going, what time are you looking at?
Yeah, so it's a little late to get in on this, on 2024 funding. We would have to get something through the planning board, and those approvals would have to be in place. So we're probably wouldn't get funding and be able to break ground until the latter part of 2025. Just sort of and then, these construction projects typically have a 12 to 14 month period to them. So you're talking about opening the doors maybe in 2026 at the earliest.
And then with all the construction going on, that would interfere with the football field, that would interfere with the construction going on.
It was interesting. So up in Heartland, we redid an old school. We had to tear down part of it, and the back part remained an active community center, and they had soccer camps in the summer, and we were able to route the construction traffic so it didn't interfere with what the community center was doing. We just had two separate entrances. And that's one of the reasons I walked around today again, just sort of visualize again. I think we could pretty much isolate that football field side from any kind of construction traffic. Obviously at some point they might have to do something to the like windows on that side of the building, but they wouldn't have to do it on a busy Saturday football game day.
Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair. When you did this project back 3.5 years ago, was that new addition also added in under the historic? It was.
Yeah, back then it had within a month had just reached the 50-year mark.
Okay.
So we added it in back then.
So it was added in. All right, thank you.
Through the chair.
Good.
Regards to the housing part of it, what was it, 44 units or something like that, 40 units, whatever it was back then?
I'd have to refresh my memory.
Whatever
Yeah.
number it is.
Yeah.
Are there gonna be a certain number of units set aside, first of all, for disabled people? And secondly, for Winslow residents specifically?
So disabled is an easy yes, because the whole building would have to be ADA compliant, and then a certain percentage of the units would specifically, have the lower sinks, the lower, kitchen counters, things like that are helpful in the ADA units. As far as setting aside, it's actually a question that I get asked on almost every single project. And the answer is that that's a challenge because of all the federal fair housing laws. You can't basically say, essentially you're saying only this type of person, according to the federal law, it's sort of like saying only this type of person could apply. And it's a tough hurdle to get over. I can tell you that in all of our projects that we've done so far, including the one right up here, the old Gerald Hotel right up here in Fairfield, 80% of the applicants are local. I mean, it's just local people just tend to be the applicants.
Thank you.
That building in Fairfield on the left, the big one, that, you guys did that?
Yeah, the old Gerald Hotel.
Nice.
Yep,
Did a good job.
thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Well, Ella, how do we move forward or not move forward, or how do we resolve? If there is an interest, how do we determine if there is an interest in revisiting this situation?
I mean, we can certainly put this on an agenda item open for discussion. We know one of the options that we're looking at is we're trying to determine if there's any contamination up there, and if there is, what are we gonna do about that? That includes the grounds as well as the building. And then I think we need to take into consideration, does that property have value to the taxpayers of Oakland for another municipal building?
Winslow?
I mean, am I in Oakland or Winslow? Yeah, so I think we have to really consider this. I mean, do we want housing up there? Or do we need to have a new library and Parks and Recreation Department up there? We've got a conundrum going on with this building here. So I think this is going to take a lot of thought and consideration from our council members. And I think that we need to start over fresh with a clean slate. And that means get rid of yesterday's conversation and take it from today. I think Dave did a very good job with his presentation. He's articulate. They've got some experience in the building business. And, is that a viable option for us? How much money do we want to spend? We have major projects on deck right now, 7 of them. And it's going to cost the taxpayers of Winslow a lot of money collectively. Do we have
Collectively to demolish the building. and
a
get-
lot of money collectively to take care of the existing projects that we currently have on deck, and that's not including the school.
Didn't we already agree to pay like 45,000 to look into demolishing
And
it?
that process is
So-
in the works right now.
I don't think we can make a decision until we get that.
No, I mean,
We just spent
what I'm just,
45.
Ray had asked me, what my thoughts are moving forward, and I think it's, for one thing, you guys all have to think about this, and you have to decide what you feel would be best for the town. And maybe have a forum, a public forum where we can get input from the citizens as well.
Through the chair, that $45,000 to check on that for, as far as asbestos and the oil contamination that's possibly in the ground. But if we had Dave doing it, would you be taking care of all of this, as the asbestos and everything else?
Yeah, so the asbestos for sure, the oil in the ground, probably that would be our responsibility too, but I can't tell you definitively. I think because it's a public-owned piece of land, that helps, because the town and essentially the developer coming in could access funds through KV-COG, for example, or through the state or federal brownfield funds that could alleviate the cost of that. If we could somehow package that into the project.
Well, I think, maybe I'm thinking this wrong, but I think we're putting the horse before the cart. Why did we spend $45,000 to test all this before we actually talked to David and see what it was gonna cost us on that?
Through the chair. Well, for one thing, Mike, you guys have authorized me to sign a contract with this company to do that. So that contract has been signed. The other part of this equation is he's going to develop an RFP to find out what it would cost us for demo on the building and to get rid of the materials that's in there. So this was more than just checking the grounds. This was to find out what this was gonna cost the taxpayers to actually do this project. And that's one of the steps here. If we're gonna go and, make this apples to apples, then we need to find out, one, what's it gonna cost to get rid of the building, and two, what's it gonna cost us to rebuild it, or
Okay.
so I mean, that's part of the process.
All right.
Through the chair, the past council defeated it, so we have no other option at the present time but to demolish that building, because this project was defeated. So this is not an option at the present time.
Well, through the chair, I disagree with you, Ray. I think it's still on the table because of this conversation we're having tonight. And to answer your question on where we go from here, I'd just like to add that, yeah, we've got right now two possibilities out there. One is demolish the building, which the process we're going through right now. The second one now, comes up now, is again back with KV Cap. And it's probably something we can look into further with KV Cap. I would suggest that we can have a council discussion on it, at a discussion item. But even before that, we would have to know a lot more of the specifics, or at least I would, on a KV Cap proposal. Before we can compare apples to apples. And see if KV Cap comes through with the best thing, we vote, the townspeople vote, whoever votes. That's the way it goes.
I think we would have, yes, I think we would have to know whether we rent it, whether we rent that piece and what the maintenance cost, what the rental cost would be to cover whatever, you know, whatever the town's portion would be. I think we need a figure for that.
So I would just suggest, for now anyway, that if KV Cap would come up with a very, very ballpark proposal, that we certainly won't hold you to give us some idea on where you guys are leaning and where we may be leaning.
Yeah.
And then compare both and we get done. And thirdly, Eller, I think, maybe we should put this out for a request for proposal. There may be others out there that want something to do with that building. I have no idea. They obviously didn't 4 years ago. Things have changed, like they just stated, things have changed.
The only thing I'll add to that, Dale, is we're in a very, very interesting situation where that's so close to the school grounds. And I think that we have to be very, very aware of the type of project that goes in over there. So you wouldn't want it into a manufacturing facility. You know, housing is kind of pushing the border on it as far as I'm concerned. But definitely, there's options out there for it.
Okay.
Through the chair, I got to ask the councilman, the councilman that's been here before I got here. 3.5 years ago, did we spend that kind of money, or $20,000 or $30,000 to do an assessment on asbestos removal and oil removal from the ground? We never did?
No,
So we never spent that money?
we found out after the fact, and I think you might remember this, that we had to do an environmental study, no matter what we did with that building.
Okay. But we didn't spend any money in the 3.5 years ago
No.
to do those tests.
I can tell you, so what happened was, we started to go down this road, and then a little thing called COVID hit, and the school decided they were gonna start
Okay.
using that building again for some spillover space, and it just kind of all sort of just stopped at that point.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And once we defeated it, then it's our building. It's the town of Winslow's building. We got responsibility to do the environmental study and every other study that's necessary. Tear down that building. So once we defeated it, they would have done the environmental study and they would have done what was necessary to understand the cost for the building, but they never got the chance. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but when we defeated it, we assumed the entire responsibility of the environmental study and razing of the building.
Ray, I understand that we would get to use some of that building, but at a cost, and I thought it was pretty high cost to rent the building once we sold it to KV.
I never saw a figure, never saw any figures related to the cost to upkeep if we decided KV Cap was gonna upkeep that portion of the physical portion of the building. Never saw a figure. I don't know, Dave, was there a figure?
No, I mean, it's possible that some people just bounced around whatever rents were at the day, but we never
A
went that
rental
far.
fee to the town to use that part of the building. that
Right.
would-
Yeah,
No, yeah.
it would be whatever, it would be, if it was being rented to the town, it would be the minimum, like what breaks us even, you know, to just keep it safe and clean and all that.
Through the chair, if I remember right, the numbers were put out there, that the rental to the town was gonna be $9 to $15 a square foot, and when we figured in the square footage, it was like $250,000. And then the town would have to go out and re-rent it to recoup that money.
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, it's possible some numbers were thrown around, but whatever was, I can tell you, whatever was sort of thrown around 3.5 years ago, I agree with the town manager that it's probably good to just sort of go from the ground up again and say, okay, how do we build this so that everybody's happy with the way it's
Well,
going?
I agree with that, Dave, and that's why I suggested if you could come up with something ballpark.
Yeah.
To give us an idea on where you're going and what you would want from the town or from anybody else. To
Yeah.
give us something more solid.
And it probably makes sense for me to talk with the Parks and Rec Department and maybe if the council ends up with questions, maybe I can get a list of, if we can answer these questions, parking and, things like that, then maybe that would be helpful.
Yep.
Okay, is everybody good? Okay, thank you, Dave.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you. Reports of committees and commissions, the town manager's reports.
Okay. Members of the Winslow Council and residents of Winslow. The big news has been our budget. We've been working on that. We've been going workshops, and I want to congratulate our council and our department heads for a job well done. This is probably one of the more respectful budget processes that I've been through, and I really appreciate everybody working together. I think we made a lot of progress. We all understand that one of our duties is to keep our operating costs as low as possible. I also want to thank my administration team for their hard work in helping to produce a budget that will not raise taxes this year. And Audra and Caitlin, you guys have done a fantastic job, and I really appreciate that. I'm currently engaged in union negotiations with the Public Works Department. I'm in hopes that we can come to a conclusion tonight in our meeting and ratify our work sometime this week, as long as I have council approval. Next up on deck for union negotiations will be the fire department, and after that, the police department. So I've got a busy season in front of me. There's no real updates on my end on Chafee Brook, other than the fact that we will be required to pay an additional $18,900 in permitting fees because we're changing it. Paul's going to have a little bit to add to that. The Cushman Road project will be underway this month. Paul, has that started yet?
Started last week.
It started last week.
Yeah.
So we're currently on deck with that. With the newly awarded $3 million grant that we just received, we'll be looking for additional funding to start the Sunset Heights project as soon as possible. Phase 1 of that project is expected to cost the town approximately $7 million, so I'm going to be looking for $4 million with either bonding or federal loans. The second reading of the budget has been moved to April 29th at 6 p.m. The reason for that is because of the school budget that we have to vote on tomorrow and the time that it takes to order the ballots for this process. The location for that meeting is going to be right here in the council chambers. Other than that, that's all I have for you.
Any other department heads would like to go over their report? Lenny? You're good? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the report?
I make a motion to approve all department reports.
Second.
Discussion?
I have a question. On that $4 million, is that for this half of the year? that we're doing?
That's phase 1.
For
There's
phase
going to
1.
be another phase behind that, and
And that'll be an additional 4?
well, I don't remember. I think the total project was upwards of 15 million.
It depends, we can get a grant for the second phase, I guess, right now.
Okay, and we got a grant for $3 million?
Yeah, we got a grant, but we just got the letter, and I think I mailed that out to you guys so you could read it.
Okay.
The board letter.
Anything else? Ray Karen?
Yes.
Adam Lind?
Yes.
Jeff West?
Yes.
Mike Joseph?
Yes.
Dale Macklin?
Yes.
And Fran Hudson.
Yes.
Motion passes 6 with 1 absent. And the Finance Committee reports and the financial reports were attached to your agenda. On to tabled business, resolution number 6-2024, providing for authorization for the Public Safety Director to determine which one of the Winslow ambulance is the least desirable and to sell it.
I'll make a motion to take it off the table.
Second.
Discussion?
No discussion when you take the table,
Oh,
Jeff,
yeah,
just about.
yeah, that's right, sorry.
Ray Karen?
Yes.
Fran Hudson? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong line. Adam Lent
Yes.
and Jeff West,
Yes.
Mike Joseph,
Yes.
and Dale Macklin.
Yes.
And Fran, I heard you say yes, correct?
Yes.
Sorry. So motion passes 6, 1 absent.
Make a motion. We're recommending from the management side to keep that ambulance. We're making that recommendation, and if somebody would like to make a motion and move that forward, it'd be great.
I'd like to make a motion to keep an ambulance.
I'll second it.
Yeah, we go to discussion, but if we vote this down, that doesn't matter anyway.
Well, Lenny's up there, why don't we let him speak?
What do you mean if we vote it down?
If we vote down the authorization
Correct.
to sell it, then it's a moot point anyway.
Yeah, we got the ambulance and that's it.
Lenny, can Lenny say something on it?
Yeah.
Good evening. So I think the general consensus I've got from the councilors is that I think we're gonna move forward. I think people wanna keep it at this point, and my feeling is that, after talking to other departments, I think it's worth a lot more at this point than we bought it for. And one of the exciting things we're gonna start looking into this year after we get through the budget and union negotiations is we're gonna start really digging deep into how we can make interfacility transfers work for the town, whether you wanna move forward with those or not. So that third ambulance, I believe, will be part of that piece of the puzzle if you decide to do that. And if it doesn't work out, later on, we could always turn around and sell it, so.
It makes no sense to sell it. It really doesn't.
So we need to vote no on this, so this is a no vote would kill this and we
Correct.
would not sell it,
That's
so.
correct.
Unless somebody else has something, I make a motion to end discussion?
Roll call?
Ray Karen.
No.
No, right, you gotta vote on the motion to end discussion first.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Okay, so hold on.
You don't even have to make a motion on that.
Good, I didn't. Yeah, I want to end discussion.
Okay, so that
Believe
Ray,
me, I want to end discussion.
Ray
Withdraw your
ended the
motion.
discussion. Was there, who seconded?
I second
End?
it.
Thank you, sorry. Okay, so a motion to end the discussion. Ray Karen,
Yes.
Adam Lent,
Yes.
Jeff West,
I'd rather talk about it some Yes.
Mike Joseph,
Yes.
Dale Macklin,
Yes.
and Fran Hudson.
Yes.
So motion to end the discussion passes. And now we have a motion to keep the ambulance on the table.
No.
Well, there was, would you like to rescind your motion?
To,
Say yes.
yes.
She made a motion to keep it. So that would be a whole nother,
Oh, no, just read it as it is on the agenda order, and this is unusual, they usually read different, so a yes vote means you approve it. In this case, it's a no vote.
You're gonna vote no if you want to keep it.
Correct.
If you want to sell it, you will vote yes.
Okay.
Okay, so the order is the authorization for the public safety director to determine which one of the Winslow ambulance is the least desirable and to sell it. Ray Karen,
No.
Adam Lent,
No.
Jeff West,
no.
Mike Joseph,
No.
Dale Macklin,
No?
and Fran Hudson.
No.
So motion fails 6-1, with 1 absent. So we will keep the ambulance.
Good job.
Is that right?
It's just cleaner that way.
Yeah.
Okay, on to new business, ordinance number 5-2024, providing to repeal chapter number 2, administration, article XX, billing services, subsection 286 through 290 of the town ordinance, currently listed as chapter 128, emergency service fees, subsections 128-1 through 128-5 of the town code, amended in its entirety September 9th, 2019 by ordinance number 9-2029, and this is a public hearing. to start, please.
So do we need a motion?
Well,
Go to
Jeff,
the public hearing first.
public hearing first, yep. So if anyone has, would like to speak on this issue only, they may stand up at the podium, please.
Being no one, we will move on.
Now we motion?
Now we motion.
I motion to repeal.
Second.
Any discussion?
I think a lot of people may not understand, because I didn't understand this until a resident brought it to our attention. This is the subject, if you get in an accident in the town of Winslow, car accident, boat accident, whatever, when the fire department goes to either extricate you out of the vehicle or even clean up the road after they move your car, sweep up the glass, insurance companies used to cover this. Some still do. A lot of them are getting wise to it and are not. So you may not even realize it until your insurance doesn't cover it, that when you get in the accident, you're getting a bill from your insurance company and you may be paying, this one person was paying $400 after the accident for the town, another town, to go and clean up that accident. So that's what these fees are. On top of your taxes that are paying for the fire department to go already, you are now going to pay on top of that. And it, although most states are doing it, it is current right now that a lot more states are stopping it because they do feel it's a money grab. They do feel you're double dipping. If I want to invite my mother from Waterville over to my house for Easter dinner, and she gets in an accident on the way, welcome to Winslow, now she may get a bill of anywhere from $400 to $1,200 for the cost of that accident. And that's your town and what your town is doing. Whether it's residents or not, if you invite somebody to your home and they get in an accident, they are now going to get stuck with that. So in case you didn't understand, I just wanted to explain what it was.
Through the chair, management is making a recommendation to repeal this ordinance.
Any further discussion? Audra, roll call, please.
So a yes vote, sorry, Jeff, so a yes vote would be to repeal.
Correct, that's correct.
I made a mistake already, I don't want to make another mistake, especially if I'm called on first. You know what I mean? A lot of pressure.
You are not this time. Adam Lint,
Yes.
Jeff West,
Yes.
Mike Joseph,
Yes.
Dale Macklin,
Yes?
Fran Hudson,
Yes.
and Ray Karen.
Yes, hey, that's an easy one.
Motion passes. And we will have another reading on this next meeting.
Excuse me.
Okay, ordinance number 6-2024, an amendment to the Winslow zoning map to rezone a portion of the low-density residential district to the mixed-use district. The portion is described as all properties abutting the east side of the Augusta Road from a point approximately 569 feet south of Millennium Drive, headed south to the Vassalboro town line, which includes tax map 1, lots 19, 15A, 15, 14, 14B, 14A, 8, and 8A. I think I got them all.
Through the chair, I just want to remind everybody that the Winslow Planning Board sent you all a letter, and it states that they are voting ought not to pass. The other thing I want to just say is management has no opinion on this article whatsoever. This is yours.
Motion?
Is this
Make a
for the
motion.
sign thing?
What's that?
I guess, is this the sign
This,
ordinance?
this is not about the sign, is it?
Yes, this is a sign, this
Sign
is a sign
ordinance?
ordinance.
Is this, okay, so the sign, is this gonna be delaying the sign to this person if we do this?
No, we have not voted on the low density changing a sign thing yet.
Okay,
That would delay it.
what would delay it? The,
If we, going through the whole process of the
So this
Low
would,
density.
this would actually
This is changing the district altogether.
changing the district. Okay, I've had calls from 2 people. You said you've got a call from 1 person out of all these people, right? And there was
Well,
only
2.
one that was concerned.
Well, 3 if you include Denise,
Yeah,
yes.
the only other 2 that I had, it was on 2 people, they were worried about a McDonald's going beside their house. I don't think that was gonna happen. But everything was commercial to begin with. You have mentioned it to me. I can't see why it wouldn't go to mixed use now.
Is it residential right now?
It's low-density
Low
residential
density, yeah.
on that side of the road for those however many lots. The other side of the road is already mixed use.
And we don't have input from the people that own property there?
We already did.
We did.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
We did the public hearing already.
Through the chair, real quick. So just to remind everybody, we have 2 options on the table. Right now, you are voting on changing the zoning on those 12 properties to mixed use residential, meaning you can have commercial businesses there as well as residential. The other option, the option that our planning board is recommending, is to look at the sign ordinance itself for this particular situation. And that would mean possibly increasing the sign, so she could have something that's a little more sizable out there. And the reasoning for that is, 1, the comprehensive plan is our roadmap, and it doesn't make these recommended changes. And 2, we haven't had anybody come forward to actually ask for the area to be rezoned. We've had somebody come forward to ask to put a sign up there. So, what you have on deck right now is a decision if you want to change these 12 lots to mixed-use residential, or you can make a decision to send it back to the planning board so that they can revisit changing the size of the sign and keeping it low density until somebody comes in with a business that wants to put it in there. The fear is that we're opening up a can of worms. People buy properties in this town because of our zoning. And so I just want to plant that seed in your mind to think on.
Through the chair, we've already sent the letters out to the people adjoining properties. And she also had 6 that adjoined to her that said they had no problem because it wasn't going to disvalue the properties of adjoining properties. As far as the signs on the Augusta Road, we have 17 signs up there between there and Vassarboro. So what's another sign to be put up there? I have no problem having that size sign whatsoever.
Well, it's not unless I'm misunderstanding something, it's not the size of the sign. She wants to put a sign by the road.
That's correct.
It's not the physical size of the sign, right?
Well,
But
she's
that's-
just saying,
Denise, excuse me, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we had this conversation before.
Denise, I hate to have, that way we can hear, everyone can hear you. Thank you.
So stop me anytime I'm wrong.
Stop.
Okay. Now, when you first went in, you asked to have the zone changed so you could have your sign, and you were told, there's no way that will ever pass. Am I correct?
Sort of. So I originally went
point?
in asking about the ordinance change. And they told me that there was no way they would change the ordinance whatsoever. My only option would be to consider a zoning board. Then I got another letter from them saying they denied that as well. So I've been told, in both scenarios, they would deny every opportunity for me to do it. So. Both ways, they've already shut it down to me personally. And I have written proof of that.
I mean, I have my own opinion on this whole matter, but
Through the CEO, direct and saying that it was the planning board that denied it to him.
without even bringing it forward.
Yes, correct. They said that because I didn't technically do the application, but they told me that if I did do the application, that they would have to deny it anyway, so I'd be wasting money. And then if I try to appeal it, then I'd have to go to court because they were gonna deny it all the way through. It's
Point
been
of order,
fun.
Mr. Chairman, that's all. Mike, you requested this to be put on the agenda, didn't you?
yes, I did.
That's all it takes. It's on the agenda. The council has the right to bring a zoning change to the council itself. It doesn't need a citizen to do it. Any council member could have.
I've asked both
So
ways.
that's why it's before the council now.
Which is easier, just to change the sign ordinance or a completely whole zone? Which one's easier? Which one takes less time?
Procedurally, it's the exact same.
Really?
It's the exact same time. The sign ordinance, and in this case, the ordinance, the code says that although some businesses are allowed in low-density residential, like her business was approved for being able to be in that low density.
Correct.
So that wasn't the issue. The business she was running, she wanted to put up a sign. There's another provision in our code that says no signs are allowed in low-density residential districts, period. So on one hand, you can have a business, in the other ordinance, but you can't put up a sign.
Aren't we the
To
ones
answer
that
your
change
question
the
on
ordinance?
which one to go, they're both the same.
We vote on it,
It's the
yes.
exact same process.
But we can change an ordinance, but we can't change the zone until it goes through the planning board. But we
Well,
can change an
Even
ordinance.
on this ordinance, because it's a zoning ordinance, it has to go to the planning board first, which it already has,
Not if we're just talking about the sign, or yes?
Yes.
even with the sign.
Even with just the sign?
The same procedure
That-
for both
that's a-
changes.
That's a zoning code provision. So all zoning codes have to go to the planning board first.
And they've already agreed to do the change to the signs, so that would be.
They have
No,
not
they
agreed
haven't.
They
to
have not
that.
agreed to
They
that.
denied it to me personally in email. They
I thought
refused
the
it.
planning board was here, and he, the chair, said they would suggest we
They-
go with just changing the signs.
That was not brought to them at that time.
Right,
What
but we
was-
heard him say it at the meeting.
But still has to follow, the public hearing was on changing the zoning piece of it only.
Yep.
So we'll still have to hold a public hearing, have it go to planning board for their approval or their recommendation of one way or the other. Then it will come back to you for your 2 readings.
But either way, the process for either one is exactly the same.
Yeah,
Correct.
they're exactly the same.
I mean, if you vote tonight to change the zoning on those 12 lots, this thing's done.
Well, with the second hearing in the 30 days,
In the second
Correct.
or in 30 days.
second vote.
But this is not about a sign issue currently. This is about changing the zones on
zone.
the,
By changing the zone, we change the sign ordinances though, basically. Should be
Pretty
allowed
much,
to
yeah.
have-
Different
So it's
signs.
6
are
one,
allowed
half a
in-
dozen.
Different
other,
signs are
except
allowed in mixed use. Is there anybody else that would like to speak about this?
I do have one other thing to say.
Oh,
if
I'm
you don't
sorry,
mind.
Denise.
One thing that I would say is I did notice that we have a property that's actually for sale, almost diagonal from where I am, a little bit down the road. And that one has yet to have a McDonald's come, which would be a perfect spot for it. But what I'm making as a point is that is in that mixed-use zone, and no McDonald's is coming to pick it up. I think a lot of people see that there is some homes and small businesses, so I don't think we really have to worry about some sort of like fast food place coming in. And I think we should just let businesses be businesses. Like, I'm not just fighting for myself. There's other businesses that are still stuck in the same spot I am. And I feel that, like, us as a town need to be to help businesses grow. Because I am honestly growing tired. I've been working on this since October just to try to figure out a solution. And I am almost ready to just go take it elsewhere. I have a land up in Glenburn, but I don't want to take my business to Glenburn. I want to keep it with us, where I live. So, just kind of figuring out what to do. But that's all for me.
Any other,
Yes, some people out back would like to speak.
Absolutely.
Hi, Jen Perry, 1180 Augusta Road.
1188.
Yep.
Thank you.
So there's only a few houses in question. We also own a small business. We have no plans to put up a sign, but it would change the setbacks as well. So for us, like all of our neighbors across the street have a 10-foot setback, we have 25. So I think for us, we're in favor of changing it. Because I feel like if all the houses around us have that setback, why shouldn't we? And also, she should be able to put up a sign
You're in favor of, I'm sorry,
of changing it to mixed use. So, I mean, if you drive down the Augusta Road, when you come in from like Vassalboro on the right side, we're the only houses that can't have a sign and that have a 10-foot setback. So everybody else on the entire left side of the road and then beyond us going into town can put up a sign and has the 10-foot setback, or a business, a larger business.
So you're in favor of the zone change?
Yes.
If I might, through the chair. You know, the comprehensive plan, Ella, my understanding with the comprehensive plan, that it identified the Augusta Road as a place where potential for businesses that would be there. If the planning board would have said, hey, we recommend it going to mixed use, it would be a slam dunk situation here. The planning board, why do we have boards here in the town of Winslow? Well, we usually take their advice. For unanimous that they're saying that this should remain low-density residential and not change to mixed use, you know, normally I would say, hey, that's what the comprehensive plan says, is that's a perfect example of changing from low density to mixed use to follow the comprehensive plan. That the planning board voted unanimously to deny it, how can I not take their recommendation and change that property to mixed use at this time?
So as I mentioned, their argument was that we didn't have somebody coming forward with a business to build in there. All we had was basically a sign change, and that was why they denied it. That was my understanding on it, Ray. I didn't sit through any of these meetings. I'm just getting this through.
Yeah, right,
talking
right.
with
I
the
understand that. It's
chairman,
just,
and,
yeah.
I mean, that's why I'm staying out of this, because there's two sides of this equation. I don't want to get caught in the middle of it.
The most contentious arguments through the 15 years I've been here have been zoning changes. You got people that want them and people that are very adamant about not wanting them. And, you know, and that's why we do a comprehensive plan.
Right.
That's why we did the comprehensive plan, and we identified the Augusta Road as a potential for new businesses coming in there. If we keep it low-density residential, the chances of that happening are 0 to nil.
Right.
Or there's so many restrictions of it, so
I mean, it's our main corridor in from Augusta.
it just seems to me, and I understand why the planning board said not changing it to mixed use, but I think,
This is where you have to vote from your heart. Your instincts are telling you which way to go. Just vote with your instincts.
Anyone else? I'm sorry, are you done? I already made that mistake once.
Just one thing, Mr. Chairman. Back before the old, I think it was 2008, or somewhere in between there, this property was industrial. For some reason, it got changed to low density, which,
When was that? I'm sorry.
whenever.
2008.
2007, I think.
Whatever it was. Yeah, so we went 15 years with it being low density. A lot's changed in this town in 15 years. And a new comprehensive plan, and I agree with Ray, a new comprehensive plan just came out. It's hopefully picked up all of these changes on where we can go in the future. And the outer Augusta Road is one of them.
Right.
It was industrial, then low density, don't know why. One side of the road's mixed use, the other side isn't.
So a comp plan is not set in stone. It's a living, breathing document. It's meant to be changed. It's a vision into the future. And just because something might say one thing doesn't mean you're going to change that. And Ray, you're right. Zoning is hugely controversial, and they change all the time. You know, so I'm not making this vote, and I'm quite happy I'm not.
well, you know, I think what I would suggest that we do is we vote. We vote passage of this to change it to mixed use. We still have 30 days to get with the planning board and to say if, you know, again,
But we
I
can't
would-
send it back to the.
I know you can't, because they're not. Okay. I know what I'm gonna vote.
Any further discussion? Audra, roll call, please.
I don't have a motion.
It hasn't been
Oh,
moved yet.
I thought it was.
No, you jumped the gun on discussion.
Lack of sleep, sorry.
He's tired, yeah.
So moved.
That's right, we did, yeah, never mind.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Yeah, let's try this
Mike,
again.
second. I'll let you second.
Any discussion?
Discussion's been had.
Okay.
Well, yeah, but now we gotta do that.
Jeff West,
Yes.
Mike Joseph,
Yes.
Dale Macklin,
Yes.
Fran Hudson,
Yes.
Ray Karen,
Yes.
and Adam Lunt.
Yes.
So motion passes 6 with 1 absent. And there will be a second reading next meeting.
Next meeting, or is it 30 days?
Next meeting, and then they will have 30 days after that before it goes into effect.
Okay.
Order number 6-2024, providing for authorization for the town manager to sell the property located on Garland Road in Winslow, tax map 11, lot 37B-1, in the amount of $2,000 to SDG Investors LLC.
My apologies, I should have done this beforehand. This was my mistake. The council had voted for me to sell that. I didn't realize there was an extra step in the town of Winslow. So this is kind of backwards.
Well, I think, Ella, didn't we, they offered something, you went back and negotiated a better price.
Right.
And the council hasn't approved that price yet.
Oh, yes, you did.
Yes, we
Yeah,
did.
Yeah, you did. Yep. This is the
Okay.
piece of property that's on the Sebasticook River. It's when they lowered the dam, a little piece showed its, and we sold it to the landowner.
Okay, just to the.
It was sold to the abutter.
No, no.
Motion to approve?
Second?
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Jeff West,
Yes.
Mike Joseph,
Yes.
Dale Macklin,
Yes?
Fran Hudson,
Yes.
Ray Karen,
Yes.
and Adam Lint.
Yes.
So motion passes 6-0. Now, I'm sorry, 6-1 with one absent. Since it's already been sold, should we waive the second reading?
Yes.
Do I
That's
have-
where I was going next.
Sorry, I didn't want to forget.
Make a motion, we waive the second reading.
Second.
Discussion?
Jeff West,
Yes.
Mike Joseph,
Yes.
Dale Macklin,
Yes?
Fran Hudson,
Yes.
Ray Karen,
Yes.
Adam Lint.
Yes.
Motion passed to waive the second reading, 6 with one absent. Motion number 7-2020, I'm sorry, order number 7-2024, providing for authorization for the Public Works Director to purchase a stationary generator for the China Road Pump Station from the sewer capital account with the cost not to exceed $50,000.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? I think we pretty much hashed that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah, whew, God.
Roll call, please.
Mike Joseph,
Yes.
Dale Macklin,
Yes?
Fran Hudson,
Yes.
Ray Karen,
Yes.
Adam Lint,
Yes.
and Jeff West.
Yes.
Motion passes 6 with one absent.
You want to waive the second, Paul, so you can get right on it?
No, really, we get another vote in 2 weeks, and it'll probably take us a year to get this in there.
Okay.
With the new staff and
So sorry, Paul. Resolution number 11-2024, she is not here this evening. She had asked to have it come in May to be
Okay.
presented this resolution, but it had already gone on the agenda, so. On to discussion items, Chaffee Brook. It's all yours, Paul.
you get to be the bearer of bad news.
It's up your, it's yours.
It's just pretty much just a quick update on Chaffee Brook. We're pretty much on the verge of putting the building part out to bids, but last week when we met with our engineers, their estimate cost has gone up probably close to $1 million from what it was. But at this point, I don't take anything until we go out to bids. They can give us all the estimates they want. The estimates are based on their bid openings on other current projects. Different parts of the state bid differently, different projects bid differently. I'd like to see the bids and see where we are. We know we're gonna have a cost increase. There's too much work out there, not enough contractors, there's no competition, and we're paying the price for it. It's not the news I want to deliver, it's not the news I want to come back and ask for more money like the second and third time, but as part of that, Ella and I, we put in a request last Friday to the SRF, the state bonding company, for $5 million, $4 million for Sunset Heights and $1 million for Chaffee Brook. That had to be in by today, so we'll see where that goes, but it's, you know, there's so much money out there, there's so many projects.
not a lot of contractors, nobody sharpening their pencils. It's like, if I don't get this job, I'll get the other one next door next week. This project right now goes out to bid now, we're looking to do it next spring, we're trying to give as much lead time to these contractors so they can schedule ahead and not put the screws to us worse than they are, but we're just in a bad situation, you know. This federal money is all Buy American, which is not cheap. Same thing, there's only a couple companies that make some of this stuff, so they're not giving it away, so we're paying all around, so. That's the bad news I have to deliver for Chaffee Brook, so.
So you're saying the engineering costs or the cost for the
The
project?
cost for the project.
For the project.
Their engineer's estimate has gone up.
So we were gonna bond that anyway,
We
correct?
bonded, well, we've already bonded the 6.8 million. That was supposed to be all we
Yeah,
needed.
so how much more? do
We're
you know?
looking at probably $1 million is what they're telling us. But like I said, until we go out to bids and see the numbers, it's,
This is what I'm talking about. We've got a lot of heavy
we
costs.
could be
coming up.
pleasantly surprised, it could be $500,000, you know, I don't know.
Are you having a hard time finding people to bid on job work?
Most of these, yeah, because like this is a mechanical job, there's probably 3 contractors in the state that do that. So, the price, that's why we're trying to give it so they can start next year.
Well, you gotta bid it, so you don't know till you bid it, right? I
Right,
mean,
so we're hoping to bid it hopefully this month, beginning of May. And at least stop the increases. Once we sign a contract, we know the cost is not gonna go up as far as equipment, so they can order generators, they can order pumps. But we're giving them to at least next year to start, to try to let them schedule the work ahead of time, so they're not, you know, they'll have a nice job to start next spring, that type of thing. It's,
Paul, could you explain this to the public? As far as the waste treatment plant, we have to get permits every single year for it.
we're licensed as a, what they call a CSO community, because we have discharges when we have high flows. Part of that CSO is that every 5 years, we have to make a plan with the state, which we did in 2018. Part of that plan was to increase our pump capacity, because we have capacity at the treatment plant that we're not using, because we can't get it there. That's why we're putting a bigger pipe across the river and bigger pumps.
Yeah,
So-
and it costs us more for permits too, right?
The permits are not expensive. We pay probably, I don't know, it's $500-600 for a 5-year permit. Permits aren't expensive, but it's to follow the rules of the permit. So if we don't finish Chaffee Brook at some point, they're gonna come back after us. Because we made a commitment in 2018, we were gonna do this. So they're gonna come after us. We'll end up paying fines. We'll still have to do it, but the fines is not gonna get us anything.
Yep.
Is the river crossing gonna take place this summer, Paul?
Right now, we're looking at permits for beginning of October. The last we spoke with them, it looked good that we're gonna do that. It's gonna be a minor review, but it's still, everybody still has to look at the plans and give their blessing.
When are they looking at doing it?
October.
Why are
We-
they waiting so long?
We can't get in there because of the fish. The fish are spawning, the fish are upstream, downstream, sideways, whatever. It's all about the fish. You know, and it's frustrating because as much as you appreciate the passion that these people have, these guys are really passionate about their job, but they gotta realize that we have passion trying to get our stuff done too, but October, we can get it done.
I hope, well, now, when they started last year?
No, it started November of last year.
Oh, okay.
That extra month make a big difference, and they're actually gonna come in on site sooner than that. Because even on Chaffee Brook, I've taken everything out of that project that we can do in-house. We're taking all the earthwork out of the contract, I'm gonna do that here in-house with our guys, our crews, to try to save as much as we can. But I can't do the mechanical part, you know, I can't do pumps and electrical and all that stuff, so.
Paul, I have a question for you on Sunset Heights when
Yes.
we're doing this first part of it. Now, we have a 3-year contract with Pike, correct?
Yes.
Is that labor included in that, or is that
Yes.
just for the materials?
That's pavement installed.
Okay,
The price we pay is installed price.
all right, thanks.
Yep. Other questions? Like I said, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but
That you know.
I lost the bet with Ellis.
Like it.
Thank you, Paul.
Well, you'll be retired pretty soon, Paul. Won't have to bring it to us anymore.
Yeah, but the bills are gonna stay long after.
Okay, KB Cap Transportation follow-up with Ella.
Perfect. So I've met with Aaron from KV Cap, and I gave her the green light to go for May and June. There's no charge to the town of Winslow. The service is a public transportation service. Just to kind of clarify, the fare is each way. So for seniors over a certain age, it'll be $3 each way. We talked about excluding part of our population. And the problem is the federal funding that they receive to help pay for the service comes from a public transportation pot of money. And if we start excluding people based on age, then it becomes an issue where they have to draw from another pot of money, which they're gonna ask for more money from the town of Winslow to make this thing happen. My recommendation is we've actually taken this step to offer public transportation for people who may have less means than others, and I think that it's a great move on our end for the citizens of this town. I think that we should make it happen for May and June and see what the numbers are. If the ridership is up there, they're going to do a blast out to people. And if we find that there's no participation, maybe we can rethink that option later on down. But I think the longer we have it in service, the more it's going to be used. This program picks people up at their doorstep. They actually bring the van out, the KV Cap van, and they try to bunch people up. So if they've got people calling in, they ask for people to call a couple of days ahead of time or the day ahead, and they try to group people up to get them all right at the same time, and it makes it more cost effective for them. Brand new program, just started in January. I'm kind of excited to see how it works. And this is something that's really a good thing. For the cost of $10,000 on a $33 million budget, I think that it's something that we need to seriously move forward with.
Did they already start this?
They're starting on May 1st.
May 1st, okay,
Yeah.
thank you, sorry.
I did meet with her, and this is only going to be available for population centers in the town of Winslow. Fortunately for us, most of our population's condensed, so it's gonna be from the Carter Memorial Bridge, and it'll be almost out to the Benton Town line and into town. So they won't be going out in the country because of weather conditions in the wintertime and what have you. They're gonna try to keep the population density.
Will you have a map?
I do have a map. We sat down and we generated that, and it's a big swath of the town of Winslow.
And you have a way to get this out to?
They're gonna
you, the
they're gonna do a
town
lot
itself?
of it, and when we get this final conversation done here, they're gonna send me materials so I can get on the town social media page. We can put it at the front counter so people coming in, we get it on the town's website, and I think you're gonna find that this is gonna spread word of mouth as well. KV Cap's gonna be offering it. There's people from Winslow that use KV Cap now for Medicaid, the Medicaid rides, where it's just the vehicle and they pick them up. And unfortunately, if we end up splitting the population up a little bit, that's the pot of money that's gonna have to be tapped into to offer this service for the town of Winslow.
So hopefully we'll get that information pretty soon.
As soon as you guys give me the green light on it, I'm gonna pull the trigger and make it happen, for sure.
Well, we can give you that right now, can't we?
You certainly can.
I'm in favor.
Yep.
In favor?
Good, thank you.
Okay, moratorium on permitting hydrogen-related electrolysis property. Adam?
I just wanted to talk to people about what's coming to the town of Winslow with installation of solar panels and solar farms and what's going on, and kind of touch base and make sure everybody's aware of what's happening, and that maybe our fire and police can kind of brush up and see what we need to do for training for hydrogen explosions or leaks or any issues or anything like that that are coming with these. These were approved, I believe, a year or two ago, and they've started progress. Just a couple of topics. Storage and transportation. Hydrogen is very costly, and it's complex to engineer the materials involved in keeping it contained. Hydrogen is supposedly clean, but currently 95% of the hydrogen energy comes from fracked gas, and only 5% is actually green energy, which comes from splitting water molecules and electricity from renewable energies. Hydrogen is also a thirsty source, so throughout its life cycle, each megawatt hour of green hydrogen consumes at least 5,000 liters of water, compared to solar, which uses 20 liters, and wind, which uses 1 liter. And these storage, they're basically like a hydrogen storage battery that they're using for the solar panels, so that they're gonna hold energy and then distribute them back out into the power grid. And I just wanted people to understand what's going on and that there are dangers and issues and stuff that they need to be paying attention to if when they get going with leaks and, you know, possible hazards of fires and stuff like that that could come to the town to make sure that everybody, you know, we had training for our police officers and fire and, you know, emergency services if something, you know, did happen, make sure all the proper procedures are in place and make sure that we have a decommissioning process. You know, I've done a little research and it's hard to find a bunch of the information on the facts without having to buy all of the plans that they have out there. So just wanted everybody to kind of realize it and ask questions and dig into it and do a little research for yourself. And
I'll get something to add to that too, Adam, is that I believe that if that hydrant get a leak, there's going to have to be an evacuation because it's deadly. Is that
they
correct?
have had an evacuation. Let's see, 2015 LA largest methane leak in U.S. history. I believe it was it leaked for over 100 days before they figured out that there was a leak, and the facility, property, and immediate. They didn't report the leak immediately to the officials, and the evacuation of thousands of residents was a consequence of it.
So that was on methane gas.
Methane,
Not on hydrogen.
which is a way that they store.
Right.
They can actually convert hydrogen and store it as methane gas at this, and convert it back over to hydrogen too.
And the other thing I'd like to add is that if I'm not sure how our contracts read, I think we have, what, 3 sites that's going to have solar power on Winslow? Can anybody verify that?
I know of 2.
More than that, aren't there?
Let's
In
see,
Winslow?
4.1
3 of them?
megawatt solar
Yeah, 3.
farm on 28 acres off the Cushman Road, and the other is a 6.5 megawatt array that will be covering nearly 20 acres on a 50-acre parcel near Roderick Road in Winslow.
That's right. Now, the other thing is that I'm not sure how our contracts read, but I found out on some of the contracts, if they decide to abandon those solar panels after 1 year, we are responsible for it, and we have to get rid of them. Now, the government says you have so much time to get rid of them. If you don't get rid of them, we wind up paying a fine, and there is no place to get rid of them. So what do we do with them? If that contract says that we're liable, if they decide to say, okay, we're done with this.
Yeah, there's a cleanup clause on our agreements.
Did they clean up the solar panels completely?
There's
Awesome.
supposed to be a bond of like $500,000 or $600,000 or something on that.
So through the chair, I guess I'm confused. You're talking about methane, I mean, not methane, but hydrogen here. And now we're talking about solar. So is there a correlation that I'm not getting?
Yeah, it's
They
part of
catch this-
solar.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's part of solar. That they're storing the energy, am I correct? With this
Like a hydrogen
hydrogen,
battery.
that's gas. They're actually storing it. So if they're storing it, if we have a leak, there's gonna be probably an evacuation.
Okay.
But not only that, those solar panels, like I said, if they decide they don't wanna do them anymore after 1 year,
Right, right.
then we're responsible for that contract. I
Not-
didn't know
not
what
the
we had
town of
for it.
Winslow. So you're asking for a moratorium, which is a pause, okay? That's the moratorium ordinance is a pause, and if we end up, we've got 3 solar fields that are currently under construction or in Winslow right now, and we stop this is gonna be a problem for us. So I just wanna throw that caution to the wind. All a moratorium ordinance is to put a stop immediately so that we can enact legislation to change the way we do business. Okay, so that's all a moratorium is. That just puts a temporary brakes on the projects. And you're gonna be opening up a whole different can of worms. We have, I'm not saying I'm a fan of solar power versus wind power versus regular hydro, whatever. I'm not a fan for any of that stuff, but we have to understand where we currently have projects going, it could open up lawsuits for us. If we went up and said somebody, we're gonna stop, how are you gonna store that power?
Just like a comprehensive plan, or at least something out for the public to review and understand, and maybe be able to have input into that could change things as the process is going. Is, you know, I know it's like a locomotive going downhill that we're not gonna stop.
Yeah.
But it's at least to open our eyes and
Right.
do as much as we
Projects
can.
up and running now, all three? One of them is.
One
Yeah,
of them is, right?
One's up.
And two are currently under construction.
The one up on, like a bear by Kevin Violet's property off.
Right.
Kind of off Hayward Road, that one's up in the.
And if we've approved these to move forward, and we say, by the way, we're stopping these, you can rest assured these multi-million-dollar projects are gonna fall right in our lap.
I think it's good Adam brought it up because I never knew
I didn't either.
that those, and of course, if you think about it, for every panel you see, there needs to be a source for that energy to go to, which is the batteries
See, I
he's
didn't know they
talking
were
about.
storing it, I thought they were pumping it right out on the
That's
lines.
what I always thought.
I think what we need to do is, you know, I think.
Just educate
Educate
ourselves.
ourselves,
Our
but
For
best.
future too.
we
future.
have a responsibility to that if we do have a leak, that emergency personnel,
Right.
and we have a plan in place, an emergency plan, so that we can, you know, we can address that issue, whatever the issue is, how, you know, how,
If
And that's more or less
hydrogen
what I'd like
leaks-
to do.
right.
Right, if
Right.
hydrogen leaks, it's lighter than air, so it's gonna dissipate by going up. That's why hydrogen balloons, you know,
It's a lot.
Could we,
leaking.
is Lenny here today? Is Lenny here still? Is Len? oh,
no, he's,
I think Lenny, as our safety director, would be the one that would, you know, maybe you can talk to Lenny and we can formulate an emergency plan.
I think the fire department.
At least,
would be involved
at least
in it.
educate ourselves on it and plan for the future.
Yeah.
I think that's the first step.
Yeah, somebody living next door wants to make sure the fire department's gonna be able to handle it.
Go ahead, Amanda.
Sorry, normally this
Whoops,
would be
sorry,
my
I'm
department,
not-
but when we had our shape review, that was actually a question for the fire department, is if they were, what classes they were taking on solar, because there is, it's very specific way to approach issues with those. And the answer was yes, that they were doing more up-to-date training and how to address them, especially because you can't stop power when a fire starts, there's no way to cut the power off. So, just so you know, like, they are doing training for it.
Good,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Adam.
Anything else, Adam, or are you good?
I think that'll do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Raymond?
On to the 1804 Schoolhouse on Cushman Road, and Ray had asked this, that Amanda is
Oh.
going to talk about it.
You gotta get your PowerPoint up, Amanda.
I'll try to be brief. I know the PowerPoint was already sent out to you guys, so I'd really encourage you to look back at it in detail. But since we have some new council folks and we are going to have to vote on accepting some grant money, we thought would give you a little bit of history of the schoolhouse. A lot of people don't realize we have a schoolhouse in Winslow and kind of the history behind it. So it was added on to the, there's a picture right there. And you can go ahead to the next slide, Ella.
If I can figure this out. Yeah,
Okay.
Gotcha.
It was added to the National Registry in 1978, and it's right on the outer Cushman Tor, almost to Vassaboro. Just briefly looking at some of the history on the next slide, I just want to highlight a few of the points here. Ray actually did a great job chronologically giving a lot of information. But in the 1960s, the schoolhouse property and land were deeded to the Winslow Historical Society. We no longer have that important organization here in Winslow. So in 2014, the town council voted to accept ownership of the building and property. At that time, it was in disrepair. The Historical Society had used some great grant money to do some of the initial fixing of it, and Ray can speak more to that. The council determined they would put $2,500 a year towards maintenance of the building. Over the year, they've done a lot of improvements, replaced windows, done different things like that, replaced the chimney to prevent water. And not only is it nice to keep that part of our history, but we've also used it for field trips. For the local school has come out there. We've had a lot of volunteers that have replicated for the kids what it was like to go to school back then, and we've also done tours at the fort. So we've made it a multi-spot field trip. So looking at the big issue right now and the reason for the grant is the roof is in disrepair. We're really at risk of starting to have a lot of structural issues underneath, and obviously that's not very good. I would huge shout out to Ray and Mike Heavener, have done a lot of work towards working on getting grant funds for the project. It is a historical building, so in order to keep it historical, we can't just slap some asphalt on there. So we we went for those grant funds. And I've already off myself off track. So the roof right now is 34 years old. It's cedar shingles. And Ray did so many great details on here. I really would encourage, we're going to put this on the website too. It kind of goes through the specs of the project and how we'll go about replacing that roof. The quote is about $17,000 to $18,000. We do not have those kind of capital funds available, so we'd be looking to get a grant for $16,237 with a cash match from the town for $5,413. And all those are already in the capital account, so that's not anything new that we would be taking from. On the next page, you can see we've used this grant before when it was the Historical Society, and they used that for structural needs. And I think the next slide just has some more detailed pictures of the roof and the damage that we're having at the moment. So we went for the Historical Preservation Grant. That involves similar to what we did with the fort. If anyone followed that project, they'd be looking at using Dow's Eastern white shingles and shakes, all trees from Maine. There's a huge process to keeping it historical, and it's really detailed out through here on how long the shakes have to be, how they have to be dried. And then prior to installation, those shakes will be dipped in preservation to enhance the longevity of the roof. They'll be using copper nails, stainless steel nails, and then they'll have to inspect the roof underneath and see if any additional work that needs to be done for that. Installation, the shakes will be installed onto the existing roof deck. All of the shakes will be inspected for imperfections. They even go down to the details of the knots on the shingles will not exist below the reveal line. I mean, a lot goes into keeping these historical buildings historical. The first course of shakes shall be doubled with the edge offset on the second layer. So again, lots of details. Maintenance, there is a maintenance to this. Every 5 years, we'll have to clean the exposed area and then basically paint on a conditioner onto the shakes, which makes them last longer. And that comes at a cost of about $2,900 every 5 years. And then the last picture, I'm kind of sad. Ray had asked me about pictures from our field trips there. I think we're so busy with the experience, we don't take pictures. But that's a picture of the inside of it. But when we've had kids there, it's been really neat for them to have that experience. So.
Yeah, I kind of put this slide in just because I don't know if anybody in the audience knows who those two people are, but they're very, the guy on the right is Don Pelletier, used to live on Petty's Pond Road, and he was the last president of the Winslow Historical Society. He had a lot to do with the preservation. And the lady on the right is Grace Vigio. And Grace had a lot to do with the history in the town of Winslow. So those are people that are passed now, but really did a lot of work within the schoolhouse to get it to where it is today. Like I said, the cost would be about $20,000+. And it's not just the roof, it's all the boards on the side, the two gable ends, all replacement on the gable ends. So it's a lot of work. If we do not get the grant, we just don't have the money. We're just gonna, I hate to say it, but we're gonna slap some asphalt shingles that look like cedar on the roof for about probably around $7,000 or so, even less than that. But when we do that, we'll lose a historical designation because the roof is one of those. We could change the windows to vinyl that look like replica of old, but the Historic Preservation Commission said that once we change the roof, we'll lose our designation, and then we won't be eligible for any grants into the future. So we're trying to do this to keep it up, and the life expectancy of the roof is probably, if you do every 5 years, the last time the roof was changed was, I think it was 1980, when we did it was in the flood, so 1987, so if you calculate out, and we didn't preserve it well.
Right.
So if we preserve it every 5 years, I think you can get 50 years out of that, out of a cedar roof and stuff. It's the same thing what they did down at the fort, same specifications.
So we're hoping to just give you a brief history. Hopefully we'll be coming in the month or so, and hopefully we'll be asking you to approve some grant money.
Yep, the grant's in, and we'll know in, I think, the beginning of June or something.
But the
Then
goal is to
after
do the
that-
project this summer.
Yeah, it'll be well, if we get the money, if
Yeah.
not, slap some asphalt on that.
I'd like to add something to that, Amanda, not on the stage down by the fort. That I've talked to Chris Poole, and he was one of them that actually did the building of that stage. And I asked him if he had any plans on it, and he says no, but he could draw them up if you'd like to have those plans. Somebody had asked me here that, he says, if they have plans, it'd be great to reconstruct that stage.
Okay. Yeah, I think we were looking at that too, to see what the rebuild cost would be. So if we had plans, it'd be easy to get those costs from contractors. I think right now what we're looking at, what the committee's looking at, is trying to build something that has a concrete rock base, so that if we have another flood, hopefully we recreate the issues that just came, knowing we're probably gonna have more flooding and more weather. Is he the one working upstairs?
Yes.
Yeah, I might go up and chat with him.
Yeah, talk to
Because that's
Chris,
good to
yeah.
know that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, on to public comment. I'll just read my statement before. Any persons wishing to verbally address the council on any matter may do so, providing permission first obtained from the council chair. Each person addressing the council shall stand and give the person's name and address in an audible tone of voice for the record, and shall limit remarks to the time allotted by the council chair. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a body and not to any member thereof. No person other than the council and the person having the floor shall be permitted to enter into any discussion, either directly or through a counselor, without the permission of the council chair. No questions shall be asked a counselor except through the council chair. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or who shall become boisterous while addressing the council, shall be forthwith by the council chair barred from further audience before the council, unless permission to continue be granted by the majority vote of the council. Does anyone, please?
Louis Bourgeois, 238 Abbott Road. I've missed a couple meetings, and I was just wondering what the board has decided to do with the $100,000 or $200,000. They want to put it in a bond or something. Has you guys done anything with that?
Yeah, actually, I can answer that. We did our investigation on it, and we ended up going with our current bank, and the interest rate was such that it generated about $600 more in interest for us in a year. So that's where we ended up going with it.
Excuse me, I got to add to that, because for one thing, I thought it was supposed to be brought before the council, because I had some information from Edward Jones. They went through their legal counsel down in St. Louis to make sure that we could do the municipalities. And this wound up being put into a CD, and it's for a year, and it's for $200,000. And I know, Ella, you were telling me, it says a withdrawal of interest, and it says credited. A term can be withdrawn before maturity of the term without penalty. But on the bottom, it says early withdrawal penalty. If we consent a request for a withdrawal that is otherwise not permitted, you may have to pay a penalty. The penalty will be an amount of equal to 6 months interest penalty.
Who are
So
you talking about, Bangor or with?
I'm talking about Bangor.
Yeah, I mean, but you also got that letter that they're gonna waive that for the town of Winslow.
No, I did not get that letter.
I handed it to you when you were in my office, Mike.
Waive the fees associated with early withdrawal with this letter, okay. So now this is now locked in for 1 year. And the thing is, we never discussed what Edward Jones could do if we could do it with the municipality. I'm a little upset for the fact that we didn't even look at it. If we can make more money, how about the next $3 million?
So I sent you an email that states that we're governed by state law, that we can only invest our funds into Tier 1 financial institutions. That consists of banks, savings and loans, and credit unions. We're not allowed to invest in money houses. That was an email that I sent to you. The other thing is the council has given me permission. We have a treasurer in town. She has complete control of the town's finances as far as making these decisions, and we can't break the law. And, you know, the other issue that we have to look at is a perception of conflict of interest. If we end up going out banking with any amount of money, we should be putting out an RFP to attract more banks than just one person or one place. I mean, this is the process that we have to use. And we don't want to have the perception of conflict of interest. And that's, you and I had that conversation as well. And I understand that you want to do business with Edward Jones. I really do. But that's out of our scope. We can't do that. When I brought Edward Jones in and I asked them for a portfolio or any references on municipalities, they had none. And there's a reason for that. It's because we're not allowed in the state of Maine to invest money in that.
I disagree with you, Ella, because I talked to Edward Jones as well.
Yeah, and
They spoke
their
to-
legal team is from out of state, right?
Yes, St. Louis, that's
So-
correct,
so his-
municipality, and they asked me for one.
Lost that email. There it is.
No, I have there.
No, this is the email that I sent to you and the rest of the council.
Okay, and that's on the 30 AMRS,
That's correct.
5706. Okay, well, I had it copied today, and I have this to give to Edward Jones. Edward Jones says if this is passable with their attorneys, then we could actually invest it legally.
MMA Legal is the people who had weighed in on this. This came from Maine Municipal Association's legal team. Okay, that quote on there came from them. We can't break the law, Mike.
I don't expect to break the law.
And on top of that, it still doesn't take away from the perception of conflict of interest. okay?
Conflict of interest with who?
Well, the conflict of interest is the fact that you and I have money invested in that operation, and we're not going out to bid. We should be taking 3 different banks, not financial houses, 3 different banks, if we're gonna do this, and go out to bid. I was able to use our current bank, Bangor Savings Bank, and they were able to sharpen the pencil enough so that we were able to make more money, more interest for the taxpayers.
And how much money is that?
$11,000 a year.
Okay. Now, you're saying conflict of interest. Now, we have people in here that probably do banking with Bangor Savings
Just the fact
Banks?
that we're not going out for RFP to ferret out more options, that in itself makes it look like, for one thing, we have a purchase policy that we have to follow. And what that policy states is if we end up trying to ferret out business for somebody, we have to put it out to bid. That's why we're doing it through Chafee Brook. It makes no difference with our banking services. We should be going out to bid every 3 years. on
And
our
why
banking
didn't we?
I just started. I mean, I did talk with Erica, and she went through this process last spring, about a year ago, and she found that Bangor Savings Bank, with the fact that, one, it's our hometown bank, and it's a commercial bank, and they've done a good job, and that's, I don't know if the council was involved in that decision or not, but that's where we are.
But you just told me that we have to have 3, and you just went to the one with Bangor.
Because
We never
they're our
discussed it.
current bank. We're currently doing banking with them.
I understand what Mike's saying, either you need to have 3 different or you
But they're our
don't.
current bank. They're the
No, you
bank
said
that we're
3,
doing
I
business.
understand the current.
If we take the money out of this bank and we want to try to find a financial institute to offer more interest, we should be going out and putting this out to bid.
So if I
Three
went,
different banks.
The 3 different banks, that takes away the perception of conflict of interest.
You don't
away.
need to take the money out to put it out to bid.
No.
You only take it out once you find one that you agree with.
so if we found other financial places like Edward Jones,
Tier 1, Tier
Right.
1.
Tier 1.
Edward Jones is not a Tier 1 financial institution. Edward Jones is a financial house, a lending house, or not a lending house, but a money house. We need to be in banks, you've got the email, banks, savings and loans, or credit unions.
Is that for risk reason?
I don't know the reason why. Yeah, that's just state law.
Well, Louis, basic answer to the question is yes. To avoid risk and losing the money in any way, shape, or form.
there's no way they're gonna lose the money through Edward Jones.
You know, and that may be the case, and I'm sure we probably wouldn't, but we have guidelines that we have to follow.
I'll check in more into that and I'll let you know.
Mr. Chairman, I just make a comment here. with these investments and stuff, the bottom line is this. The town manager has exclusive authority to make investments. The town council basically has no authority to direct the town manager on what types of investments to make. The town manager can come to the council for advice if she wants to, as she did in this case. But ultimately, going to our charter and the provisions of this town and the state, the town manager has exclusive authority over the investments of this town.
Through
In
the
how
chair,
much?
he may, you know, you may be right, but I think a lot of this could have been avoided because the last I recall at a meeting was, he brought it up, you agreed to get people in to discuss it, to figure out what's right, what's wrong, and then you were going to present what you found. So I think the issue was, you didn't, you just went and
I
did this.
Brad. I sent you guys an email stating what I found out through the interview with, and Katie was there with me, with the manager for Edward Jones. This process started out because we had some money in the checking account, and I just wanted to play with investing it a little bit, and that's how I brought it to you. Mike made a recommendation with Edward Jones, and I said that I will check that out. Through my investigations, this is what I've learned. And the bottom line is, we just can't do it. Okay, that's
No,
the
I understand
bottom.
what you're saying, I'm just saying it probably should have just been brought to his attention.
And he and I
what you
had this
decided.
conversation. He came into my office and we talked about this.
We talked about this, that was the day that you had told me it was a done deal the day before. And then
Right.
the day I went over there, you had just done it, put it into a CD the day that I was in there. You had
Oh,
said it was already a
no,
done
no,
deal.
we just got the paperwork that day. That was when the paperwork, I ended up meeting and negotiating with them on a Friday.
Through the chair, if I might, so, you know, we haven't gone out for an RFP for a period of time, and sometime this, you know, I mean, obviously it doesn't have to be tomorrow, but we do have to look if we can get some type of better rate, or we do need to check it out to make sure at some point in time in the future, maybe within 6 months or so, or
I mean, we can look at that. I've talked with Tanya. She does deposits.
Yeah.
You know, keeping it here in the town of Winslow makes it mighty handy for her. And
Yeah.
they're offering us good rates. I mean,
Yeah.
we talked about the interest rate on the larger amount of money, and they're already currently paying that. We're making about $10,000 a month, 9 to 10,000 a month on interest right now on our money. And, you know, so that's substantial.
but at some point in time, it just makes
Yeah.
that we do our due diligence and make sure that we're getting what we need, and at some point in time in the future with tier 1 institutions.
Right.
Just getting the most money we can get.
Yep, I agree with you 100%,
So
Mike.
that's just something to look toward in the future.
Okay, now that we got way off track.
Is there any other public comment?
Joel Sullivan, Augusta Road, Winslow. I just wanted to, so you've moved ahead with a zoning change, at least the first read. I don't know exactly what the process is, but I would recommend whatever that process is to get it started to look at the signing ordinances, because they are kind of a mess. So regardless of where this goes, it might go up or might go down in the next meeting, don't know, but the signing ordinances are, if you read them, you'll see that they're kind of mess. And there's a lot of things allowed in places that probably shouldn't, things that aren't allowed in places that should, that could be cleaned up, and probably best to clean it up before we run into this problem again. So just my suggestion, I don't know whether the council has to put it as an agenda item, refer it to the planning board for review and proposal, or how that originates, but be good to move forward with that, it's my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else?
My name is Gwen Jakes. I live at 355 Abbott Road in Winslow. My original plan was to come to this meeting after an experience I had in March regarding an event venue permit. And essentially, the learning process that I experienced with the town and the conditional use. I reviewed the application, and I feel that the application that we currently have for a conditional use is not adequate for an event venue. The event venue is a major outlier to the other conditional uses. I understand that event venue was just added a couple months ago, but it, I think, stands to question, is the current application adequate for an event venue? The application that I was notified by, or notified of by certified mail, is basically a one-page assignment. So that was retracted and it never went to the planning board. However, I had still planned to come to this meeting to maybe suggest that we take a look at that application and see if it is suitable for an event venue. I don't know if you'd like me to pass some of these examples around, but I printed off three local, or local towns, what their conditional use permits look like. And then another main town that I thought had a more comprehensive conditional use permit and probably does have more event venues than the town of Winslow. I would also like to share a little bit of my experience with code enforcement and how I was treated when I came into the office regarding the permit that I was notified of. Code enforcement called the applicant, who showed up in my driveway about 10 minutes after I returned home from the town office. This has caused a lot of strife, and I think some of it was avoidable. I talked with neighbors, we sent in letters as directed on the certified mail, and those letters were shared with the applicant before the planning board meeting. This prompted them to retract their application and then reapply 6 days later. So I am again in the same position. And this is for a meeting I'm not in town for, so I don't even get to be present for it. But the way that I was treated in my conversation with the code enforcement was, in my opinion, a bit unacceptable and very unprofessional to notify the applicant within minutes of me leaving the town office. And I just want to express that experience and maybe question, what are we doing with the event venue, and how, if this is a new conditional use, can we be sure that this is fair to neighbors, to communities, to the rural district in itself?
Could you pass out the examples that you
Yeah.
have too? No, I'm not trying to cut you short, but. And we can pass them around.
Did you say they reapplied?
Oh, they're all,
I also, go ahead, Ray.
No, Ella, when we get done looking at them, could you look at them and maybe give them to codes now?
Well, we have no more codes.
Huh?
We have no code.
I know. I don't know if you want to make the code enforcement officer resigned this weekend, so Ella, maybe you want to update on what we're planning in the future?
Oh, go ahead, I don't want to interrupt.
Oh, no, I'm just listening to you.
I think that I did know, I learned this today, about there being a vacant code job. And I think, again, I just feel like that we're not prepared in this for the event venue. And any of those applications, I mean, the applicant had to fill out essentially one page to say what they wanted to do, and I have spent hours to advocate for myself and my neighbors as to why this is not a conducive piece of land for this application. Had any of those questions had to been answered by the applicant, I think it would be abundantly clear. But furthermore, there was back and forth between the applicant, code, saying he said, she said, and again, that strife would have been avoided if we had an adequate application for this type of use.
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. My understanding is they reapplied. So
Yes, they did. They applied 6 days after.
Procedurally, this is back in the hands of the planning board, not the council. The arguments you're making there are all justified, maybe.
Oh,
They may be,
I do
but
understand.
they're the arguments that you have to make before the planning board.
I understand that, but my original plan was to just come to this meeting to suggest and ask that the town council consider if the current conditional use application that the town of Winslow utilizes is adequate for an event venue.
That we can do.
And yes, that was my original,
that we
my
can do.
original plan when I thought that the 353 Abbott Road wedding venue application had been rescinded, was to just come to advocate because I felt totally blindsided by this. But also to raise the awareness that the way I was treated by the code enforcement office, which I just live out on the Abbott Road and I try to mind my business, but that made me feel very much like the town of Winslow was not playing a neutral party. And I'm not saying that that's what it was, but the code enforcement is who was representing the town in that moment. And to call the applicant, have her show up at my door, you know, and then show them the letters that were to be read at the planning board before the meeting, so that she had the opportunity to rescind her application. I was not aware that my letter would be given to the applicant. I thought it was going to be read at the planning board.
Well, hopefully we'll resolve some issues, yeah.
But is that standard that they would give the letters to the applicant before the meeting?
No, that shouldn't have happened. That shouldn't have happened.
So now she has the letters and, you know, I'm very upset at the way I was treated and the way this was carried out because it's, you know.
Neighbors, and now you're at odds.
We need to do better. There's no question. Is that we can do better, we need to do better, and we have to have better expectations for how we handle those situations. And we will. We will. And you coming here and expressing yourself and, you know, in public comment that's how things change, and that's how we can make things better by, you know, getting these and looking at them, analyzing them, and making improvements to the system that we have here.
How will we proceed with this type of matter without code?
I'm very
We have a code
talented
enforcement
person.
officer.
Yeah. That's why
So is
we
it-
had
I'm
Ella.
honestly asking that, I don't mean.
Yeah, well, I actually interviewed a very competent, capable person today that is most likely gonna be our new code enforcement officer within a week or so. But until that happens, I will be taking the bull by the horns.
Okay,
Okay, I've been around the fence post a few times.
thank you.
Thank you.
Can I actually add onto that? Is that all right?
Oh,
So my name is Cheryl Leonard, and I live at 353 Abbott Road, so I also live right next to Gwen. And the reason I actually wanted to speak is because I really want to share how difficult this has been for all of us. It's not just Gwen. And there's many of us that really felt totally blindsided. And what has come to our attention and that we are going to improve on is the applicant applied to have this added to, I'm not sure how to say it, the rules. None of us knew. But when every one of us went in to talk to the town, every one of us was told, you should have known. We had no clue until March, like 17th, 6 days before this went public. So I'm just saying that there's something broken, that when you have neighbors and neighbors and neighbors who had no clue, it wouldn't have, now there's so much emotion. We are a neighborhood that are really worried about the reaction of our neighbor. We understand they're upset. This is concerning. We just want to live, you know, we live our life, and it's just gotten way blown out of proportion, and it really shouldn't have gone that way. So I'm supporting, you know, Gwen coming up here. It was really hard for us to do this, and I'm just saying, we've sitting here at this meeting and also in awe of your jobs. You all have a really hard job. That's really obvious to me. And I thank you for your time and your commitment you give to your town. I can't thank you enough for that. That's one thing we're definitely walking away with. At the same time, I have heard over and over from the last few meetings we've had is nobody came forward. Nobody came forward because we didn't know. And I'm very aware that I did dig in the meetings, and looked, and it was hard to find out how this came about. It wasn't easy. And then someone said it was in the newspaper. I'm sorry, I don't read the newspaper. I'm sorry. So I'm just asking there might be some other things to consider on adding something like an event venue. And if you have time, please drive on the Abbott Road. Please come down and see where an event center is being considered. And we would be hearing this and what has been approved. 150 people. Sorry.
Cheryl, before you get to, you and I have known each other for a long, long time. Used to be my banker. And I can tell you, you know as well as I do that not everybody operates the same way. You know, and things do fall through the cracks. And I apologize to you for what happened here. I wish I had have known ahead of time what was going on, but I didn't. And I really didn't know too much about it until you called me up and talked with me on the phone. And but we have round 2 coming up at the planning board. And I would hope that those who are struggling with this to show up and share their concerns. I am going to be at that planning board meeting. And so, you know, go and speak your mind and let them know how you feel. I'm not 100% sure if this can be stopped, but hopefully they will listen to a voice of reason on this, and I will be there.
Yeah, and I think that is what it really comes down to is it got this far, and now it might not be able to be stopped. That's concerning. And Gwen and I both, I've lost 2 days of work because I found out about this and trying to research and oh my gosh, and the amount of stress that's gone through us has just been huge. And we don't need it.
So you know, the thing is, I think this is a good lesson learned for all of us because we're talking about zoning and how people will move into a region because of zoning, and when we start playing with it, this is the impact that it has on people. I mean, I know personally that Cheryl moved to where she was for the zoning, and so she could have the peace and quiet. You know, and what happened was they followed the 200-foot rule, which should have been much more than that, especially in such a rural area. That's something that's going to change from this point forward.
Is she the one that was beyond the
204 feet.
It's 204
Oh, you're the one that was 204?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what.
So, I mean, common sense has to come into this. And so we have some new people coming on board, hopefully, or one new person. Vanessa is a major sweetheart. She
is,
does a great job. And I can't speak high enough of her.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're going to get through this and for the better for everybody.
Yeah, and we do appreciate it. And the only other point I'd like to make with that 204, because I do appreciate when we went in, I respected the rule. Once they said, well, Cheryl, we only sent notices to 200 feet. I went, oh, okay, now I understand. But even if I had been 199 feet, I was going to find out 6 days ahead of time. And again, all the rules were followed, but we got to a point where an event center is approved in a rural district. Why would that be approved? That's not the applicant. This isn't about the applicant. The applicant, it's approved.
Isn't it a shared right-of-way?
It's a shared right-of-way. The event center.
The event center being, sorry.
Conditional use for event centers has been approved. Now, the applicant's permit now needs to be approved. That's different, and that, again, that's between, but it got to that point where we're all scrambling. Why would an event center be allowed in a rural district? I have horses, I have goats,
This is in your front yard, right? Pretty
This
much.
is my, yeah, and the applicant, of course, is understandably, this is gonna be hard for them, but they were given approval, so of course they think everything's okay. They're being impacted.
Is that road maintained by you people alone?
The shared driveway is
It is.
maintained by us. Now, they.
Not them.
Not them?
Right,
Right, it's a different.
yeah.
Okay.
But the event center is gonna be on the Abbott Road, which is, I can see from my house.
Parking would be up the right of way.
Yeah. So, thank you for your time and your consideration, I
The-
appreciate it.
The parking will be on the right of way?
They'll
Would
go
use
up the
the
right
right of way
Oh,
that they do not own. They have a right of way, yeah. But anyway, I guess that's for.
thank you
When's
for
the
coming.
planning board meeting?
17th.
Can I just make a very brief clarification? I don't know if I should go up.
Yeah.
And this really has nothing to do with the event center at all. I just feel like I should clarify that as town employees, we're governed under the Freedom of Access of Information laws. So giving you the letters, unfortunately, as soon as we receive a letter or an email or anything, it is automatically public information. Anybody is allowed to access it. If we want to have some sort of policy or procedure that we want to follow when people request that, we could potentially look into that. But as of right now, if somebody requests something, we don't have the authority to deny that to them. And I just wanted to clarify that.
If they ask for it.
Not if it's the other way around.
I can't speak for sure, but I'm pretty certain that they were requested. But don't quote me on that.
Anyone else?
I know.
Good evening. My name is Jacob Violet. I live at 349 Abbott Road. I want to second what Gwen and Cheryl said. See, I was born and raised in Winslow. My wife and I, we bought our first house in Winslow, right in town, in the Sunset Development, I think you call it. As Ella described the county, that's where we moved to, the county. But as Cheryl suggested, you guys should all swing up on Abbott Road and see where in the county we live. We live pretty close to each other. I can hear the kids, I can hear the livestock, hear the goats, the chickens. But that's what I expect to hear in the county. I don't expect to hear wedding venues, people drinking, loud music in the county. So I'm just hoping maybe the town can revisit if event centers are fitting for a rural location. My wife and I did just build our house 2 years ago, and we do have a little bit of concerns about devaluation of our home. It's our biggest asset, so I would be concerned trying to sell a property with a event center so close, obviously, with the disruption. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing nobody? Accept the.
I take a motion to adjourn?
Nope.
No? Oh, can't.
Don't jump ahead.
I'm leaving for vacation here.
How about just a 5-minute recess, then we'll go into executive session?
Yeah, sure.
Do you want to take the motion to go into executive session first?
Yep.
Motion
Take
to
the
enter
motion
into
first.
executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 4056D, labor negotiations.
And who made the motion?
Nobody yet.
So moved.
Got a
Right.
second?
Second.
And show of hands on.
Thank you,
favor?
folks. Nice seeing you.